Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into something really cool in the world of business. For decades, there have been these huge, fundamental questions about what really makes a company successful. Questions everyone has an opinion on, but nobody could ever really prove. Well, thanks to a huge breakthrough in data, that's all starting to change big time. So let's dive in.
So, let's kick things off with one of the biggest questions of them all, one that's been argued over in boardrooms and classrooms for, well, forever. Here it is, the big one. Does having more women in management actually make a company more successful? I mean, it seems like a simple question, right? You'd think we'd have a clear answer by now. Lots of people have strong feelings one way or the other, but getting real, hard proof? Well, that's been next to impossible. And the reason why is actually pretty fascinating.
And look, it's not like people haven't been trying. Researchers have been chipping away at this for ages. The problem is this deep, fundamental roadblock in how we even study businesses. There's a major split in the methods researchers use.
And this roadblock actually has a name. It's called the micro-macro divide. And for a long time, it's been the #1 reason we couldn't get a straight answer to our big question.
Okay, so what you're seeing here is basically these two totally separate worlds of research. On one side, you've got your micro-researchers. They're all about psychology, studying people and teams. They ask things like, how do people behave? Then, on the other side, you've got the macro-researchers. They're coming from economics and sociology, looking at whole companies, whole industries, and asking, how do these systems perform? It's like they're speaking different languages, and honestly, they pretty much never crossed paths.
So yeah, that's what we're talking about when we say the micro-macro divide. It's the massive challenge of connecting the dots between individual behavior, the micro stuff, and the company's bottom line, the macro stuff. And for ages, connecting those two worlds, it just seemed impossible.
And this analogy just hits the nail on the head. Micro-research, like surveying employees, is amazing for understanding one single tree in incredible detail. But you can't understand the health of the entire forest that way. There's just no way you can survey enough trees, enough companies, to get a real statistically solid big-picture view. So you end up with amazing details about one tree, but no real answers about the forest.
But what if you could suddenly get data on every single tree in the forest at the same time? Well, that's exactly what's happening. Researchers have found a way to bridge this divide by unlocking these massive data vaults that were basically hiding in plain sight the whole time.
And this right here, this is the core idea from the research paper we're digging into. The authors are pointing out this huge untapped opportunity. For years, the macro researchers have been sitting on these giant databases, but the micro folks, the ones that were actually interested in the people stuff, they just weren't tapping into it.
And listen, we are not talking about some small, obscure data set here. In their review, the researchers found 31 major databases. Imagine these like entire digital libraries packed with detailed records on thousands of companies from all over the world going back years and years.
So what's inside these vaults? Now, names like CompuStat or BoardX probably don't mean a lot to you or me, but in the research world, these are legendary. They are just these vast collections of corporate vital signs, tracking pretty much everything you can imagine.
So what's actually in this data? Let's take a peek inside just one of them. Just look at the social category here. It has data on employee training, diversity numbers, health and safety. This is the kind of stuff micro-researchers have only dreamed of studying at a massive scale. This is it. This is the bridge between those two worlds.
So having access to all this data gives researchers something they've never really had before. It's not just about having more information. It's a totally new approach that gives their findings a kind of firepower that was just impossible before. The paper breaks it down into 4 huge advantages. And honestly, you can think of them as research superpowers. These are what allow them to build a way stronger, way more convincing case. All right, superpower number 1, seeing through time. Because this data is collected year after year, it's longitudinal. And you guys, this is an absolute game changer. It means you can look at a company's diversity in 2010 and then see what happened to its performance in 2011. It helps us get past simple correlation and get closer to actual causation. It really is like a time machine for business data.
Okay, so superpowers 2 and 3 kind of work together to build this airtight case. First, you can use multiple ways to measure the same thing. So instead of just one measure of profit, you use 2. If the result holds up for both, you're on much stronger ground. Second, and this is crucial, you can control for other stuff. So you can ask, hey, is this just because bigger companies happen to be more diverse and more profitable? By controlling for things like firm size or industry, they can zero in on the one thing they're studying and be way more confident that it's the real deal.
Okay, so we've got the theory, we've got the tools. Let's go back to that original billion-dollar question and see what happens when you unleash these superpowers on it.
First up, scale. Remember how old-school research was stuck looking at just 1 or 2 trees? Well, with this new approach, they analyzed, get this, 1,354 firms.
Then you've got the scope. This wasn't just a US study. The data covered companies from 40 different countries, which makes the findings truly global.
And finally, depth. Using that time machine superpower, they looked at 15 years of data for every single one of those companies, from 2002 all the way to 2016.
So after all that, after analyzing over 1,000 companies across 40 countries for 15 straight years, what did they find? The verdict? It was clear. They found a positive link.
So let's break that down. First, more gender diversity in management was linked to better company performance. Simple as that. Second, this wasn't a fluke. It showed up using 2 different ways of measuring success, return on assets and return on equity. And third, and this is maybe the most powerful part, the effect wasn't just happening in the same year. More diversity in one year was linked to better performance in the next year, which, really points toward a cause and effect relationship.
And this is really the key takeaway here. They didn't just stumble upon an answer. They found it using a method that's robust, that's credible, and that can stand up to serious questions. The how is just as important as the what.
So, okay, one of the biggest questions in business now has a much, much clearer answer. But the ripple effects of this, they go way beyond just this one topic.
Because the real story here isn't just one answer to one question. It's about a whole new capability, a new way to answer a whole class of questions that we used to just guess about. I love this part. The paper's authors literally call this their wish list. I mean, just look at these questions. What's the actual long-term impact of employee turnover? Do wellness programs really pay off? Does more training actually lead to more innovation? These are the heavy hitters, the kinds of things that keep leaders up at night. And now we finally have a roadmap to find real answers.
At the end of the day, what this all adds up to is a massive shift. For so long, the people side of business was run on gut feelings and the latest fads. Now we're walking into an era where we can finally use hard data to make decisions about people, just like we do for finance. We are walking into an era of genuine evidence-based management.
And that, of course, leaves us with one final big thought. If we now have the key to get real answers to the biggest questions about how businesses actually work, the only question is, what should we ask next? Thanks for joining The Explainer.